G'day everyone. Welcome to tonight's global update, 12th of March. And wow, what's happened in 2 weeks? Um, it's in some instances it may have gone to shit. But in other instances, I think there's some great opportunities out there, and we're starting to flush out some of the bullshit from the last 10 years. But let's see. This could be the start of just more um, turmoil that we'll see over the next um, probably 6 to 8 years as we go into 2032. That's for sure. So I just wanted to start quickly on on the global markets. Uh, the world has gone into the chaos with what's happening in the Middle East. And off the back of that, world markets seem to have gone a bit crazy. As always in these times, mum and dads are just getting themselves slaughtered. Um, Mum and dad investors are their own worst enemy. They sell into the panic, um, and then they buy into the hype. And um, we're starting to see this everywhere. And then the vulture in the communities of traders out there who were just doing their job, right, in the community world, in the trading world of the hedge funds and so forth. They buy into this. Um, Whenever you see these type of panics around, the biggest thing you could do is turn off the news, turn off the world, have a look at it probably once a week, and then move on. If you've got spare cash, buy into it. Right? There will be moves here, and there will be big moves here, and there'll be lots and lots of money made. But don't panic. Don't go in and drop your pants and say, I've got to get out of the stock market and then dive into the gold market at its high. Why would you get out of something that's low into something that's bullish? Right. You make these decisions when the markets aren't in these turmoils, right? And that's why most people fail, right? And that's why most people don't understand that are they traders or not traders? I'm not a trader, right? I'm not a market trader. I do not like trading stock markets. I'll work with other people that do that, right? There is some fundamentals that you can look at, buying gold and all that sort of stuff. But when the market's right, I do see metals going higher. But there will be pullbacks, and it's on those pullbacks, not on the drive up. It is when you should be looking to buy and top up more. Um, Commodities in general are up and are doing well. Currencies seem to be stable. The biggest part of the market that I'm seeing where there's big problems is the private credit funds. And these are private credit funds that have been put together by all the big banks around the world to step in to the private credit markets around property, around business acquisition, asset financing, and the so forth. And what's happening with the crisis is on, and it probably started really before the crisis. There was actually probably 2 weeks ago. I think it was JP Morgan. I know it was BlackRock. Started to put some redemptions on their credit funds, and from what I can gather, a lot of this is Europe, is the downturn in Europe, and people are trying to pull their money out. But you got to remember, private credit, private equity, any of the private markets are illiquid, and it's you get the returns in these markets because they're illiquid. Right. And that's what you're paying for. If it was a quickly get in, get out market, you're going to get the ordinary returns. If you're going to get into the private credit world or the private equity world, you're going to be locked in for some time and you're going to have to take the ups and downs. And it's when you panic that the whole lot blows up. Right. And that is what we're seeing in the private credit market is people are panicking. And when I say people here, I'm talking about institutions. So there's institutions that are panicking. They've probably got pressure themselves, but then they're going into into panic mode, and then panic gets in the thing. The problem is private credit could spread to other parts of the credit and fund world, and then that could have a very big flow-on effect. Um, Trading economics is one of my all-time favorite tools, just for seeing what's going on in the markets. Um, and as you can see there, this is live. We're now live on the thing. This is the indices or the stock markets. We're seeing they're, not too bad. Like year on year, they're up 40%. So if you've been holding in the markets for longer than 12 months, you're still up. So why panic? But people are. They see the red here and then they panic on the markets. Um, so we're moving into US opening shortly or now. Um, so we're sort of in London. So we're in Europe opening now, sorry, and then we'll be into the US opening in a few hours. So Australia got hit today, 1.2%. The rest of the markets are 0.5%. Yeah, they're getting hit, but they're not getting smashed as you would expect against what they've made year on year, right? And what they've made year on year is actually quite well. We can then jump, if we jump over to commodities, we can have a quick look at commodities. Oil's up, of course. 91 a barrel. Brent is 97. Natural gas, 32. Gasoline. So gasoline is the refined product that's what you put in your car. Up 3.9%. Heating oil, this is a big one for Europe. There's a lot of pressure. People use heating oil to survive. That's a big one going up. Coal's going up. Coal's been going up for a little while, actually. What's its year on year? Yeah, see, 32% year on year. So, coal's not going anywhere. It's showing it that it's there. TFT, that's European gas, UK gas. So all the commodities are up. Methanol's down. It was up a minute ago. 22,650. What's that? A ton. That's a very good price for it. Coking coal, it's pretty much neutral. Coking coal is steel, and coal up here is thermal coal. That's power. German gas and Urals oil. It's down because you can't get it out of the Middle East at the moment, and the Straits. So gold 5,000, silver 86, copper 584, steel itself, wow, 3,000. It's up and down. Lithium 158,000 a ton. That's look at that, 111% year on year. Platinum 117% year on year. There's some good changes here, and this is why you don't need to panic, because if you're building your portfolios properly, especially long-term stuff, you're still well up year on year, right? In a lot. Let's go. Let's have a quick look at cryptos. This is a really good platform, people. If you want to have a check at what's happening with the world markets. I'm probably lingering. Yeah, the crypto market's all over the place. It's been hammered over the last 12 months. And that's because there is no store of wealth here. None of this on here is store of wealth. They are just all trading assets. And that's why they bounce around so much. There is just purely and simply nothing here that is a store of wealth. It is just a trading vehicle, and it's been used as that, and it gets hammered due to it. So yeah, so there we go, guys. Let's quickly have a look at the bond market. I'm expecting the bonds to be doing quite well. So your yields are moving around. Yeah, it's pretty stable year on year. Turkey, and then if we go to currencies. Um, yeah, really currencies are, stable. We've done well against the USD. um, here, um, but they're not moving around super hard. They're a little bit here, a little bit there. Um, Pretty much what you would expect, people rebalancing out of some currencies into others, with what's going on. So Europe, we're taking a bit of a coming off the boil a bit, um, but anything that's US, predominantly is doing quite well, or US again, paired. So quite interesting. Um, yeah. All right. You can see, and the good thing with things like this, and those who are traders and know what's going on, better will actually see that, uh, you can actually see the flow of money. And I've said this before, you can actually see the flow of money when you watch these over a number of times. Um, so that's US stocks, up there. Let's see if there's European. So this is the German market. Yeah, German market. Yeah, it's moving. The redder it is, um, the brighter the red is, the worse it's doing. I like being able to just watch it in a visual form. It's the US 500. Here's the United Kingdom. Yeah, different industries are getting hammered in different ways. Financial stocks at the moment are really getting a pummeling, um, which is probably not a bad thing. Industrials and materials and stuff are doing okay. They're holding their own, but you know, don't panic. I would say the biggest thing with this is don't panic. Um, Lean into whoops, um, lean into what's going on, rather than panic and and become, you know, slaughter for the beast, so to speak. All right, so that's just a quick overview of what I'm seeing and where my head's at with the markets. And by no means am I a world stock analyst or a massive trader. I'm just seeing these are the things that I'm seeing. The biggest thing is, when crises like this happen, mum and dads who are in and out of the markets, they just stuff it up. Um, and basically stop any panic. There is no panic at the moment. The only panic is created by the governments because the governments want you to panic. Media wants you to panic. So stop panicking, and then just take the facts. The biggest news story, of course, over the last 10 days, 11 days, has been the Iran war. Um, I keep saying their freedom is possible. I've mentioned this in other episodes about Iran. Iran is a very crucial, key component in the Middle East, backed by a super terrorist, loving regime, and a super oppressive, regime as well. They are a key to securing peace in the Middle East. If you get back to a secular Iran, basically back to its Persian roots, it will then start to nullify the over influence of countries like Israel in the region, which creates more friction, in the region than what's needed. You got to If you get a very secular Iran, countries like Saudi, and Turkey will basically form a bit of an alliance, and then they'll use their big sticks to keep everyone else under control, keep the terrorism under control, um, and keep the idiots under control. The problem that we've had with the Middle East is, the Western world has gone in, especially the Europeans, with the help of the Americans, and they've got rid of us, Saddam Hussein. Yes, he was a prick. Yes, he was a fool, but he he was controlling a lot of the war tribes, underneath, especially, further around him in Syria and places like that. Gaddafi did the same thing in Libya. He kept the idiot, elements and the warlords under control. Now that they're not around, you're starting to see all this. massive turmoil, and a lot of it could be and is by design. But now's the time to put the lid back on it and get it under control. The only thing with Iran, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again and again and again, is until someone internally in Iran steps up and says, "I am the replacement," and we're not talking about, the Ayatollah gets killed and replaces him with the son. We're talking about a new leader who is going to drive Iran forward. Until that person steps up or a group of people steps up, um, this will turn into a religious war. And when this turns into a religious war, Shiite Sunni, with the Saudis coming in over the top, we are going to have a long, drawn out, multi-year war. We're talking 2, 3, 5 years until this goes. I don't think America's prepared for it. I don't think that Trump fully understood where this would go if it turned into a religious war, and that is what's happening. We're starting to see countries like Azerbaijan turn around to Iran and say, A, don't hit us with your shit, as we have done nothing to you. But if you do continue to attack us, we will attack you. Right? Saudi is about to do the same thing. There is other countries around the area as well. Jordan, Turkey's been very silent, but I know from information I've got in the back channels, they are basically telling Iran, if you hit us, expect to be hit worse than what the Americans are doing. Right. And countries like this will put boots on the ground. Is it the Kurds are in the northeast, um, are literally coming across the border and moving into territory. So there is some boots on the ground. They're not American boots, but there are boots from other countries, and that is encouraging to see that the other countries in the region have obviously had enough of their shit as well, and they are moving to get through it. A lot of the attacks that Iran are doing now, especially in the first 5 to 10 days, were pretty much all theatre. It's not until now that they've actually started to take control of their drone fleets that they're actually having some more luck, I suppose, or more precision as they're getting better with that. But 90% or 99% of everything that they're firing is getting shot down. So they will run out of steam eventually, and what they're launching and the numbers they're launching are down like 80, 85% from what it was in the early days. So it is slowly working through itself, but it could turn into a guerrilla style war and then just move over and over and over again. A couple of other things. Most of the images that have been pulled out of places like the Dubai Tower that was on fire was from like 5, 6 years ago. One of the buildings at Dubai Airport that was struck, well, that building doesn't exist anymore. It was from a previous attack or a previous thing. Most of the things that are dropped into Dubai, from what I can gather and talking to people over there, it's basically shrapnel. Um, a lot of the media hysteria that I'm seeing and hearing is more about the media and the governments of Europe, predominantly UK, France, Germany, stopping the expatriation to Dubai. It's about people, it's about the media driving panic into these people so they take their wealth back to Europe, because there has been super large numbers of people move out of the UK, out of Europe, into Dubai, and they're taking their millions and millions with them. Something like 16,000 millionaires left the UK alone in the previous 6 months. That is a lot of wealth that is draining out, and these countries know it, so they're actually using this war as a propaganda machine to stop that flow of expatriation. I don't think it'll work. There is going to be people that leave Dubai because they fucking haven't got a spine. Um, but Dubai is probably safer than Melbourne. Actually, I would actually put my hand up and say Dubai is safer than Melbourne right now. So if you're living in Melbourne, you've probably got a better chance of being stabbed or murdered in Melbourne than you would have a piece of rocket or something falling on you in Dubai. So the hype is just way over the top. It's stupidly over the top, but people are falling for it. So there we go. Iran, that follows onto the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's warning didn't stop the ships transiting in the Strait of Hormuz. What stopped the shipping in the Strait of Hormuz was Lloyd's of London. In the first instance, they hiked up the rates of war insurance against ships, and then they stopped offering war insurance. So even the ships sitting in the Gulf don't have coverage, right? So, and then Trump actually has fixed the problem and at the same time pretty much destroyed the city of London by doing this, which is a fantastic move. Um, and the city of London pretty much controlled shipping for, I don't know, 300-400 years. It's been the center of shipping insurance from all over the world. But Trump creating basically the new backing of insurance policies from US backed insurance companies has allowed shipping companies to change their insurance to American carriers and then transit the Straits of Hormuz. There is a backlog, and policies will be being changed, and it will take days. Like this is not an easy thing to do. Ships are going to have to get new policies. They're going to probably some of them have to probably get new flags, but we're talking days, not months, for all this to go. And we're talking lots of ships. We're not talking one or two here. We're talking hundreds of ships and ship movements. There is shipping moving through the Straits of Hormuz as we speak today. It is not stopped. It's not choked. Bulk carriers, fuel tankers, chemical tankers, LNG tankers are all moving through the Straits. They're just doing it without AIS. And AIS is the beacon that you see on all the ship tracking sites that tracks the ships. With aircraft, it's ADSB. And with shipping, it's AIS, Automatic Information of Shipping, or something like that, it's called. So because Iran has had success with the shipping and it thought it would, it's now moved its attacks to the oil infrastructure of neighboring countries, Oman, um, uh, the UAE, but in Fallujah and Iraq, Qatar, Bahrain, and Iraq. But one of the things I found interesting when I was looking at this is a lot of the oil terminals that they're hitting are the oil terminals that trade in Iranian oil. So the oil terminal in Oman is a very large trader into Africa of Iranian oil. Qatar is the LNG hub for Iranian gas. Bahrain does a lot of Iranian oil. You got to remember, a lot of these countries hate Iran, but they love their dollars and they love their oil. So they will create it and make it look like it's coming from somewhere else. Um, Especially countries like Iraq and Kuwait and Qatar, who really don't care. The only one that's a bit out of whack is the oil terminals in Saudi. It's like they're taunting the Saudis, and if it was me, I wouldn't be taunting the Saudis because they very rarely get involved in anything. But when they do it with a big stick. Just ask Yemen how it got flattened um, with with its terrorist attacks into Saudi. So Iran better be careful because it doesn't want to wake the Saudis, and the Saudis will go in and just bloody rip them a new asshole. So let's see where this goes, but I expect the Straits of Hormuz to open up. There's supposed to be 10 mines being laid, but you know, I'm doubtful. America will start at some point soon. They will start doing flotilla arrangements where they transit. They have warships transiting um, and transiting with oil carriers and stuff like that. So um, the Strait of Hormuz is moving. And the other thing is the Strait of Hormuz does not affect Australia with its oil price. Most of the oil that ends up being traded in Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Brunei that we get is from the region, is pretty much from the Asian region. You got Brunei, Malaysia with vast oil um, resources, and same in Indonesia, Thailand, right up into Myanmar and all that. So a lot of that oil gets refined into there. We buy it from there, and then it's shipped down to Australia. But more on that later. So a prediction is Cuba's next. Um, this Cuba's suffering at the moment because Venezuela was a really, really good friend for it. And they now longer don't have the terrorist activities. They don't have the Chinese and Russian money that was flowing through them. And I think Trump is probably right when he says there could be a friendly takeover. How that happens, once again, it's probably something that's going to happen internally, and they will then um, open up and take the embargo out. So under the rules of the embargo, um, the only way that the embargo can be 100% lifted is the regime needs to change. So the communist regime needs to go, and a democratically elected government needs to take place. That's one of the binding elements of the embargo that was put in place in, I think it was 67 when the embargo was officially put in place. Um, and this is part of the Shields of America movement. And the Shields of America movement is basically a defense pact so far between, I think it's 11, 11 or 12 sort of American or America's uh, countries. Some notable big ones absent, like Canada and Brazil, but Argentina, El Salvador, Bolivia, a lot of the other um, intermediate countries are all part of it. And it's about getting rid of narco-terrorism and other terrorists from within the regions. And the countries that signed up are the ones that have the problem with the narco-terrorists and with the communism and the Islamic terrorism that gets trained over there. So if you take Cuba out as the last communist stronghold, the rest of it then starts to clear and then they can move it out. What it also does is open up one of America's greatest casino and tourism playgrounds. So between the 1930s and the basically when Castro took over 50, no, in 60s, 57 or 60s, um, the hotels and casino industry was the casino industry for America. There was no Las Vegas back in those days, and the mafia and all their associates ran all the casinos and gambling and horse racing, everything through Cuba. And by reopening Cuba, you're going to reopen a lot of that infrastructure that's there and bring in a lot of that sort of tourism. And you've got to remember that it is closer to the largest population base in America than you have in Las Vegas, and it's not in America, right? So a great playground will be opened if Cuba becomes a free, democratic, American-loving country again. But watch this space. Cuba is definitely next, and let's see if it creates the the energy and everything that I think it could create back into the area. So now we're just going to shift to Australia. Um, um, how no wonder we've got a shit Labor government. We have what happens when you have two real shit sides is you end up with the worst of everything in a government. There is no opposition at the moment, none, zip, zero, zilch. Albo's got his entire way. He's cozying up to the Greens doing deals, and he's just going to push whatever he wants through. And the coalition can't do anything. It's just sitting there doing nothing. Angus Taylor started to say all the right things, started to move the party in the right direction. Um, the vote hasn't changed because most of the people that they require have just left. The rusted on voters are now leaving in droves faster than anything they announce uh, comes back. Today, was it today in Parliament or yesterday in Parliament? They again reaffirmed the Paris Agreement. Both the new leader of the Nazi, Matt Canavan, and Taylor basically said that we are and remain um, dedicated to the Paris Agreement. That's just absolutely ridiculous because that's going to sink them. Net zero is the cause of just about everything that is destroying the country at the moment. So Angus Taylor still signed up to it. Matt Canavan come out and supported it today. He has just destroyed his credibility and the best chance that he had to make the Nationals great again. Right? Matt Canavan failed. The polls aren't moving because they keep doing the same bullshit stuff, and the polls won't go anywhere, right? And the Farrer election, as we'll get to in the Politics Matter section, is going to go to a till because there is not enough cohesion in the conservative side of politics. You got these fools going around. You got little prick or little proud, or little to be proud of. He resigned. This smells like a massive scandal. You don't roll out the wife and get into tears for the cameras if you're just tired and I'm stepping down, right? Unless he is the biggest fairy under the sun, which I don't think so, this smells. There is a massive, massive scandal coming, or there is something coming that Little Proud stepped aside for or has stepped aside for someone else. Now, I think this will lead the way for Matt Canavan moving to the lower house and then testing the waters around a number of different issues with the coalition. People say that he was going to run against Michelle Landry in Capricornia. He wouldn't have the numbers. I think she would do him in a heartbeat. And you've also got to remember they're both LNP, so they're both LNP members. So how could he run against another LNP member if he wasn't pre-selected for that seat? And I couldn't see him getting pre-selected for that seat of Capricorn. So Little Prick steps aside. Canavan moves into the seat of Maranoa, gets elected because it's a very safe coalition seat. And it will reduce the numbers at this election, but he will then be in the lower house and the ability to challenge on a number of levels and take it up. Now, he could do all that, but if he doesn't change the underlying policy platform that the coalition has between the Nationals and the coalition, they're dead. They're more than dead. right? And Australia will not change its direction until something really cracks and triggers. And at this point in time, One Nation is the catch-all for all conservatives that hate the coalition. But they're not going to be the savior on election day. They could actually do more harm than good, but it's going to scare the fuck out of everyone in the coalition. The coalition, if it keeps going the way it's going, should basically just form a party with the Teals, and away they go, because that's pretty much their policy platform. So, guys, the coalition is still fucked. It's not going anywhere. The little proud step aside thing is something coming. We'll watch this closely. Um, uh, Matt Canavan killed himself in like the first 30 minutes of him being leader. Um, so he has already, the numbers people are already been into his ear, about, you've got to moderate yourself. That whole moderate bullshit that the coalition's got themselves into. Okay, I want to retouch on a couple of issues that are hot topic again now, but I brought up in October last year. One of them's tax changes to super. At the time, they scrapped the unrealized capital gains. That was the big hairy goal out here, to try and scare everyone so that they could get their increases on super accounts, 3 million and 10 million. So super now, if you've got 3 million plus, the proportion above 3 million is 30% tax. And if you've got 10 million or more, it's 40% tax. That's all passing Parliament now. The Greens have signed off on it, and that is going to happen, right? So that's a big statement. Now, off the back of that, we will start to see a whole heap of other changes in the super area, including capital gains tax exemptions, and then that will flow into trusts, that will flow into people that have property in their own name. So you'll see a raft of changes. Now they've got the Green support. It's taken them, October, it's taken them, what, 6, 7 months to get to this stage now. And as I said at the time, it was all designed to fail so that they could get the Greens on board and they could get what they wanted. With the Greens on board, they will get worse and worse and worse and worse policies coming off the back of this. So, and they've got no opposition. They've got no one out there that is going to say, hey, no more, right? Because they are already at that point. So, in a way, I told you so. Um, in a way, this is the Liberals and the coalition's fault because they're a fucking mess. And we are now in a point where we will start seeing that they've got one and it's passing Parliament. They will just start to roll out the May budget. I'm expecting it to be a slaughter for investors. And because that's the Chardonnay socialists' envy on your cash. They expect it into their pocket. And the more that they can get away with this, the more and more they don't have to worry about their spending because they're just going to keep coming after your money. The one part of this that they never ever see is that smart money leaves. If it's in super, you're screwed. Unless you're 60, you can't get it out of super. But if you're smart and don't put it into super, um, you have super mobility over your assets. You can just pack up and move your assets to Dubai, or you could pack up and move yourself and your assets to Singapore or Hong Kong or Malaysia or 50 other different places around the world that want your money. So places that want your money and want you, but they don't want to take your money, right? They like you to park the money there because it creates jobs and revenues and makes the places safe, and they make the places attractive because high net worth individuals don't want shit. They don't want Somali fucking gangs with machetes running around the place, right? That's what socialists want. And that's why this is the socialist dream that Jim Chalmers has got now. So I told you so. I knew this was where it was going to end up, and the Greens would get on board someday. But this is only going to get worse now because they've got their this is the thin edge of the wedge is now in. They've got their path. That they know what they've got to give up. They know, what skin they're going to get scratched off them going through Parliament, but there is no one to oppose it. So they will do everything they can as fast as they can in case they lose the next election. But at this stage, I can't see them losing the next election. Once again, from October last year, we were running out of fuel. We're still running out of fuel, and it's getting worse. So back on the 30th of October, I reported there was 24 days of petrol, 28 days of diesel, 20 days of Jet A1. As of yesterday, it was reported that we had 36 days of petrol, 32 days of diesel, and 29 days of Jet A1. I'm calling bullshit on those numbers, and I'm calling bullshit on a very large scale because Western towns have been told that they're not getting diesel deliveries. Farmers, miners, earth moving companies doing road builds and infrastructure builds have all been told that their deliveries will be either cut or they will not be getting them at all. So someone's hoarding it. The problem with the numbers of 36 days, that includes all oil that is currently owned, sorry, all fuel, and I do this myself. Oil and refined products are two totally different beasts. Oil is an organic substance and it does not at all go off. You can store it for 1 billion years just as it's been stored in the ground. Refined product deteriorates. It off gases, it deteriorates, so it actually does have a shelf life. 6 to 9 months, depending on the type of fuel. Diesel longer than thing, but diesel gums up. Diesel gets fuel bug in it. Jet A1 drops substantially and attracts a lot of water. And petrol does the same thing. It attracts water, it gums up because of the process and the additives that are put into it through the refining process. Right. And that is what creates why refining product and storing it and using it. That's why most countries that are doing this, the way that Australia is doing it, only work on, say, 30 to 45 days, not the 90. Right. And that's because of you need the turnover of the product. You can't just store it. It goes bad. And so back to what I was saying with the 36 days. That's fuel that's in our petrol stations, fuel that's in our stockpiles at the ports, where it's brought in. That is fuel that is currently on ships coming to Australia, and fuel that is awaiting, that has been refined for us and has been paid for, that is awaiting shipping. Now, out of all that, the largest quantity is the refined waiting for shipping, followed by the stuff that's on the water, and then the stuff here. We work on a very much just-in-time scale. Now, with the global presences that's happened, global shipping is slowed. Global refining has slowed. What is happening is countries that are taking fuel, right, locally and using it locally to keep their country supplied. And then the export stuff, well, that's got to be topped up from the refinery, right? So there is a lot of moving parts here, and why we are, and why the fuel wholesalers know that they don't have the fuel, and why their bowsers are going dry. Panic buying doesn't help because then that throws out the oil purchasing schedules and so forth. But we need to get our refining capacity back up. It is a security issue. I saw a stupid fucking comment. Actually, all comments out of politicians' mouths are stupid. Airs saying that, oh, the electric car people are doing it so well because they just drive past the Bowser. Oh, what a fucking moron. How does he think electric cars get to Australia? They get here on ships powered by oil, heavy diesel or heavy ship fuel, part of the refining process. How does he think that our electricity and the maintenance of our electricity service gets fixed by people in diesel utes? These guys are fucking idiots. They have no clue how the economy, how the country operates. We run out of diesel, you starve. It is that simple because food doesn't get from the port if it's imported to the shopping centres. Food doesn't get delivered by your delivery companies. Food can't get to the restaurants. Food can't get to the stores. Food can't get from the farmer to the processing centre to the shopping centre because it all relies on diesel. You can't run a massive tractor that plants and seeds grains on electricity. It would work for 20 minutes because of the torque and horsepower required to move these fucking things. They are huge. It's not going to happen. We run out of diesel, especially diesel, we starve. Wait until the fucking wokies in inner city Sydney and Melbourne realize they can't get their fucking Chardonnay because the trucks can't get from the port to deliver it to the bottle shop. There'll be fucking riots in the streets. But all this has been caused because of those Chardonnay sipping fools. So if you know a Chardonnay sipping fool, smack them around the fucking head and tell them to fucking wake up to themselves. Because we're in this situation now because they wanted to green the planet. They wanted to save the planet. Well, you've just fucking destroyed the country because these crises that were happening now in shipping, and this is a shipping crisis, not an oil crisis. There's more than enough oil in the world. Only 3% of the oil that Australia interacts with comes from the Middle East. The rest of it comes from other parts of the world. And funnily enough, most of it actually comes from Russia. But if we had a couple of billion barrel, I haven't done the numbers, but let's say 2 billion barrels of oil stored on here, and we had several refineries refining, we wouldn't be in this situation. If we had enough oil stored, because it's an organic product, it can store and stay and be there forever. We drilled, we've got plenty of oil under South Australia, we've got plenty of oil in the Bass Strait we can tap into with new drilling technologies, with EOR, which is enhanced oil recovery. So you pump salt water down, bring all the oil and stuff out of the oil bearing formation and tap it in. We've probably used in the Bass Strait oil field 30% of what's there. The Cooper Eromanga Basin is probably the same. So with new drilling techniques, but companies don't go down these drilling technique routes because of all the stupid rules and regulations around oil's bad. We have to stop oil, right? What we're going to do is stop dumb humans. We're going to stop people that are dumb breeding, because that is what has caused this crisis. That is why Australia doesn't have petrol. And we need to change it, and we need to change it quick. But it's not going to change because of what I just told you before. We don't have an opposition. And the opposition still believes in Paris, which means that they're not going to drill. So we are screwed. And we are screwed in a big, big way. That leads us to politics and why it matters. It matters because we may not have food because we've got dumb politicians. And for some reason, they don't care. They don't care at all. So the latest voting intention, this is from a YouGov poll. Not a real lot of change. The Liberal Nationals have joined again, but their numbers are 19. And this is under the new management, and they've lost 3 points. One Nation's still sitting around 26. It's bumbling around. The AOP's up and down. Independents are moving around, and others. So, and there's not a lot there, right? So this pretty much is saying that we may be where we're going to be for the foreseeable future. But let's see. I think what's happening is most people are now banked on who they're backing, and they're going to wait to see what happens in Farah and what happens in South Australia, especially with One Nation. And if One Nation does very, very good in both of those, right, which I'm expecting him to do, but I'm not expecting him to win. I'm expecting him to do very well. We may see the final death throes out of the major parties into One Nation. But One Nation is a catch-all for Conservative or for I hate the majors, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone's going to vote according to where they're polling. Two-party preferred is where I thought it would be. Doesn't matter whether it's the LNP or One Nation. Preferences are going to heavily flow to Labor still. One Nation, especially if One Nation ends up third, a lot of One Nation votes end up at the ALP. It's about a 50-50 split between the ALP and the LNP, but I would expect it to be higher, probably 60-40. This time, that's why they do so well here. And here with that is the same thing. The Greens, of course, heavily back the ALP, but the LNP and others will probably break more to the ALP than they would the One Nation, or otherwise the LNP people would already be in One Nation. So these are the people now in the Liberal National movement and that coalition movement that hate One Nation more than they hate the ALP. And there is those out there. It's fucking shocking, I know, but there is more people out there who would rather see Labor win and destroy this country even more than have One Nation or other conservative parties get elected. That's how dumb a lot of these LNP voters now that are super rusted on are. So comparison over a 3-month period, ALP hasn't moved much, One Nation hasn't moved much, but when you add the Lib, Nats, LNP, because LNP in Queensland, it's a combined party. It's not two separate Liberal Party and National Party. It's one. So if you added those up, what do we get? We get 4, 6. So we get 20%. If you have a look here, 19%. It's dropped into other. The 1% from the 20 here has dropped into the others. So there's not a great deal of change across that period. In this poll, this is the YouGov poll. It's probably more a conservative poll than some of the others, but on these numbers, it's showing that not a lot of movements happened since January. Okay, Farah. I'll finish on Farah tonight, or Farah. There's plenty of ways of spelling. My prediction here is Millthorpe, the teal wins, and that's because of the um, the rusted rusted Liberal voter that would rather see anyone other than One Nation win. Um, can that change? Yes, the Libs would have to basically be under 10%. And then that would allow One Nation to be very high 30s. Um, they're going to have to be 30, going to have to poll, I think to win the seat, they're going to have to poll 38 to 42% to win. Because of the way that the preferences will flow in this seat. Millthorpe, or I should say the teal, she is a teal. There is no doubt about it. She's 100% teal, backed by Climate 200, and is running on all the same policies as a teal. She, at this stage, wins because of the ALP votes will go to her. As I said, half the Nats votes will go to her. The Greens votes will go to her. The other votes will more than likely go to her. And most of the Lib votes will go to her because they wouldn't want to see the One Nation win. That's how deranged some of these Liberals are, right? Now, one of the things that could be a massive upset is the National Party getting a backbone, running in the seat. Well, with what Canavan said over the last 24 hours, the candidate out there would have to basically lie and say he has nothing to do with the party. But that's the dark horse. But let's just say that nothing does change and that Millthorpe wins and wins quite comfortably. So we'll have a new teal in the house. All right, so that's my view for this week. There is quite a bit of things to watch here, especially when it comes to what's going to happen with Iran and if that turns into a very nasty religious war. If it turns into a religious war, it will be a long, drawn-out campaign, and the US is not ready for that. It could be the one issue that destroys Trump's 2028 chances. If it turns into a religious war before the end of the midterms, before the end of this year, which it quite possibly could, it could be the end of Trump as it is. This one thing, it could be the major miscalculation. My personal belief is he got dragged into it from a certain little country over there, and wasn't prepared well enough for where this could turn. So let's hope he doesn't have to put boots on the ground and the other countries around step up and a leader steps up in Iran for the opposition side and is enough to then drag people. Because I think one of the things that's happening is because there isn't a coherent opposition, where have we heard that before? There is nothing for the police or the military or the major political organizations inside Iran to rally around, to drop their guns, so to speak, and move to someone new, right? Because there isn't that figurehead there. There isn't anyone there for them to get behind. If there was someone that they could get behind, they could point the finger at, they could touch, feel, smell, hug, right? And say, you are our new leader, take me to your leader. I think the Iranian thing would be over now. I think it'd be finished. But while ever that person doesn't stand up, while ever that organization doesn't stand up and convert the police, the military to their side, regime change is not going to happen. But what will happen is a nasty religious war. The fuel crisis is super worrying for me. It is something that we could have fixed 20 years ago by 10 years ago by just having an open mind. and actually being Australia first. Um, we've got to be in Australia first. Like we're the number one in so many resources, and we're one of the poorest countries for it in the world that has resources. It's just dumbfounding that we are in this position. So um, I'm going to leave you on that note. And but on a bright side, there is opportunities out there, people. Wherever there's chaos, there's opportunity. Um, it may not be here in Australia. You've got to remember the world is big. Australia is 1% of the world's GDP. Your opportunity could be under the next rock. It could be around the next corner. It could be on your next holiday flight to Bali. Or it could be here at home. Because what we're going to need here in Australia is people that are super invested into driving into the essentials world, not the wants world. The wants world in Australia is just about dead. People don't have the disposable money, but they have the wants. The want for a house, the want for fuel, the want for food, the want for education, the want for just living a safe life. So I'll leave you with that because there is opportunity there and there's great opportunity there for people. So thank you very much, people. Thank you for being here again tonight. Without you showing up and without you being part of it, I wouldn't do it. So thank you again. And until next time, stay safe and think of your opportunity.